Let's bring into the conversation to get some insights and expertise on the public health perspective. Dr. Mark Kline, Physician-in-Chief and Chief Academic Officer at Children's Hospital in New Orleans. Doctor, it's great to see you. I want to start with the big decision the FDA advisors face today and tomorrow. They are meeting to talk about boosters. Boosters for some people who received the Pfizer vaccine have already been approved. Now they're looking at, do you need a booster if you had the Moderna vaccine? Do you need a booster if you had the Johnson & Johnson vaccine? And one of the fascinating questions is, if you got, let's say, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, is it okay to mix and match if you need a booster and maybe get one of the other vaccines? What's the most important thing you're looking for out of this meeting?
Well, I think, John, probably the most important thing is to see whether the advisory committee errs on the side of uniformity, harmonization of approaches between the vaccines, or do they individualize? These vaccines are all a little bit different from one another, and they may require different approaches to boosters. And the Moderna vaccine, for example, we think of as almost, or we had thought of as almost interchangeable with the Pfizer vaccine, but we've seen that over time it has been more durable in the protection that it offers. So does the committee say, well, let's go ahead and offer boosters for the Moderna vaccine in the same way that we have the Pfizer vaccine? Or do we hold off a few more months and see exactly how good that durability is? Similarly, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, of course, an entirely different technology. Do we go ahead and boost the Johnson & Johnson vaccine with another dose of Johnson & Johnson, or do we get very novel and take on the approach of possibly mixing, giving one of the other vaccines as a boost to the Johnson & Johnson vaccine recipients?
There was one study that suggested that changing, if you're a J&J, maybe getting one of the other different vaccines, that it would be helpful, maybe even better. Do we have enough data on that, or is that just one study?
You know, it was a very small study, only 450 participants in 9 different arms, but very intriguing data. If a person had received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine initially and then was boosted with the Moderna vaccine, there was a 76-fold rise in antibody levels. With the Pfizer vaccine boost, a 35-fold rise in antibody levels, but with the boost being another shot of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, just a 4-fold rise in antibody levels. So very intriguing information, suggestive that mixing may be advantageous, but we need a much bigger study to say definitively.
Caitlin Collins, our correspondent at the White House, just laid out this is a very complicated challenge for the president, the COVID impact on the economy, the COVID impact on psychology even of the country. Let's focus on the public health part of it and what you're seeing on the ground. You're in New Orleans, as you see it. Here's one of the things that jumps out at me, and that if you go back to early in the administration when vaccines became widely available, everybody wanted a vaccine, rushed out to get them right in the spring. Then it lulled out a little bit. Here's an issue right now. There are 66 million Americans who still have not received even one COVID shot, and only 231,000 Americans initiated the vaccine yesterday. Are you seeing any evidence on the ground that those who are hesitant or who are reluctant are beginning to come around? Or as they hear things like cases are coming down and hospitalizations are coming down, does that make them think, oh, I told you so, I'm good?
Yeah, John, I'm not seeing a groundswell of enthusiasm for vaccines. I think we have a hardcore group that have weighed the pros and cons and for whatever reason have decided that they're not going to be vaccinated. I was hopeful as we saw a surge among pediatric patients over the course of the summer that might be the impetus for a lot of people to come forward and finally get vaccinated. And we saw that in a few cases, particularly among adults who had children who actually suffered cases of the disease. But I'm not seeing much beyond that. I think that the folks who are out there who are not vaccinated at this point are largely resistant to vaccination.
What would your, as a medical professional, someone who's been on the front lines throughout this, what would your assessment be on where we are from a public health perspective in the context of, President Biden's going to come out? When he came into office on January 20th, we were having 194,000 new infections a day. We had a drop. Remember how optimistic the president was on July 4th. In July, we were down, this is July 20th, to about 37,000, just shy of 38,000 new infections a day. Then we had, of course, the up through the fall. We are starting to come down now. We're just below 90,000 new infections. Sort of where are we?
Well, we're better than we were a month ago or 6 weeks ago, but the numbers still are very high. There's a tremendous amount of community transmission still going on. Children are a major element of that. And so we need a vaccine for children as well. But it's easy to feel good because we're things are not as awful as they were just a few weeks ago. But there is no assurance that we won't be back in that same boat again. We still have too many susceptible adults and adolescents and children out there. This virus is not done with us. I think the best we can hope for is to smooth some of these ups and downs. It would be great if we could avoid another major surge and just deal with this as almost an endemic condition, something we see on an occasional or a sporadic basis. But we wouldn't have these huge surges that shut down our ability to live our lives. But it remains to be seen. I am encouraged that we haven't seen the emergence of a new variant, a sort of a post-Delta variant that could be even more contagious or more sinister than the Delta. We haven't seen that so far. That's encouraging, but we're not out of the woods. And I think to lift precautions at this point would be premature.
Dr. Kline, grateful for your time, sir. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you.